Hello Year 10 Triple Biology. This is your second lesson of the two lessons that we have on a Thursday. And these are past paper questions on eutrophication. Apologies you haven't got copies of these. I'm expecting you to write the answers into your exercise books, okay? You don't need to write the question out. Please don't feel you need to write the question out unless there is one graph question, okay, that it might be useful. Write the numbers of the questions, okay? These PowerPoints are all going to be on Moodle and the answers are within the PowerPoints as well. So if you get stuck, have a go first of all at the question and then move the PowerPoint forward or my video voiceover and you'll be able to see the answers there, okay? So these are all on questions on eutrophication. So we're going to start with our first question is a QWC question, a quality of written communication. Remember that these questions, okay, they're looking for good written English, okay, capital letters, full stops, accurate spelling, okay, sequencing if it's required, which it is in this particular question. So this is explain how the leakage of untreated sewage, raw sewage, into an unpolluted pond can result in the death of the fish living in the pond. So there's 6 marks here. Think really carefully about what you've learned about eutrophication, okay? Write your response, pause the video, okay, now, and I will then go over the answer with you when you have finished. Thank you. So hopefully you've written your response, you've got your answer. And the kinds of indicative content, that means what we're looking for within the answer is as followed. We're looking for that the untreated sewage contains either some nutrients, some nitrate or phosphate, not for just fertilizers. It's that we want the nutrients, the excess nitrate or phosphates. Second point we'd be looking for that these nutrients are absorbed, taken in, taken up, or enter the plants or the algae, or some kind of description of something that photosynthesizes. So phytoplankton would be perfectly fine too. This then results in excessive growth or overgrowth or massive growth of the plants or an algal bloom or rapid growth. So you can see the variety of different ways that you can present this information. As a result, this blocks the sunlight or light is prevented from reaching the plants that are underneath this, whether they're algae or whether they're normal pond plants, okay, or river plants. As a consequence of this, the plants die and are decayed by microbes or bacteria or decomposers. These microbes or bacteria increase in number. This is often the one that people miss out. And they carry out respiration using up the oxygen. As a result, the fish suffocate or die from lack of oxygen, but not just fish die. So in order to get 6 marks in this, I'd be expected to see correct spelling, punctuation, grammar, use of appropriate scientific terminology. And to get 6 marks, I'd be expecting you to really be picking up all of those bullet points. If you missed out one, so for example, as I said, this is the one that people tend to miss out, that the microbes and bacteria are increasing in number as they reproduce, I'd drop it down to 5. If you've got one spelling mistake, you drop it down to 5, okay? If you are missing, say, 2 of these, I will give you 4 marks. If you're missing, say, 3 of them, okay, I would drop you down to 3 marks, okay? If you're missing 4 or more of these important points, okay, then you're probably going to be in the 1 to 2 mark, but I doubt that anybody's at that point, okay? You can use your books to help you answer these questions, so please don't panic about that. Okay, so next question that you're going to have a go at doing. The diagram below shows a section through a pond on a farm in April 2010. Gosh, 11 years ago. Students carried out an investigation to see if the types of organism in the pond changed over time. So they also measured the pH of the pond water. So that should indicate to you that they're looking at how acidic the pond is. So we can see April 2010 and July 2012, they compared them. They looked at the types of plants that were found, and the plants were exactly the same in both years, but the animals changed and so did the pH of the pond water. So it was pH 7, that should be ringing bells with you, that is neutral pH. pH 4, this is mildly acidic. Remember, 1 is a strong acid, so pH 4, mildly acidic. So first part of the question, one student said the water was too acidic for most of the pond animals in 2012. Explain how information in the table supports this idea. There are 2 marks. Write your answer down. Pause the video to write your answer. Section B, the list below describes some of the features of the investigation. Suggest one improvement for each feature. So an improvement for why the students studied the pond in April 2010 and 2012. How could we improve it? The students noting their results using a key with tick is present, cross is absent. I want an improvement. And the students noting their results after a 10-minute search of the pond. What would be the improvement? 3 marks, 1 for each improvement. Then complete these sentences to show how the nitrates resulted in the death of the animals. Circle 3 correct answers. So did the number of algae in the pond increase or decrease? Did the number of decay-causing microorganisms increase or decrease? Did the oxygen levels in the water increase or decrease? And name me one type of microorganism that causes decay. So this is out of 7 marks. Pause your video, answer the questions, and I will be going over the answers with you. So, marking details for this. The first question for 2 marks, they want you to have referred to that there are fewer species or animals recorded in 2012. Refer to a correctly named animal. So, for example, the snail, the tadpole, and the newt, okay? There were less of them. You could also use this term biodiversity is reduced if you wanted to, although I doubt that you'll probably see that at this point. Lots of animals are no longer present, okay, will get you 1 mark. If you just said that, okay, lots of animals are no longer present for 1 mark. For your second mark, they're looking for a reference to a fall in or lowered pH, or that you've described the pH going from 7 to 4, or that it's now become acidic. But they must have some reference to change, not just more acidic, okay? That there's been some change, okay? For part B, improvements then, that you could do it annually or several years or over the same month or more frequent in each year. For this one, you could have quantitative data. What we mean by that is actually counting the number of them. Tally, find out how many. And for the third improvement, a longer observation period or observe several times in the day. For part C, the first mark is increased. So if I go back, this one's increased, this one's increased, this one's decreased. And one type of microorganism that causes decay, they will accept anything from bacteria, fungi, mold, but not decomposers, not microbes, interestingly enough here, or definitely not algae, okay? Third question. So this is a graphical data question. The Welsh Environmental Authority, Natural Resources Wales, monitors the concentration of nitrate and fish populations in rivers and lakes. And this is exactly what my husband used to do when he was working for the Environment Agency. The graph shows the results for a lake near farmland which was regularly treated with fertiliser from 1980 to 1990. So we can see on the graph, this line here shows you the level of nitrates going from 1980 to 1990, okay? And this is the scale for the nitrates. So this line, starting here and finishing there, this is the scale you use, okay, for that line. For this line, the number of fish or estimated number of fish, okay, we use this scale. So this line here is this scale on this side. So you don't need to draw the question out or draw the graph out. I just want you to answer Between which years was the highest rate of increase of nitrate pollution in the lake? In which year would you expect the highest concentration of oxygen in the lake and the highest concentration of bacteria in the lake? Write your answers down, pause the video to help you. So the second part of this question, and you will need to probably go back and have a look at the numbers. On the grid below, sketch a line graph to show the expected changes in the biomass of plants. The biomass means the just the mass of them, okay, how much there will be from 1980 to 1990. Now notice there are 3 marks here. So whatever graph you draw, okay, whatever type of line graph, they're looking for where the graph starts, where the graph's going to end, okay, and what kind of shape you're going to get for the graph compared with the data that you have here. Okay, so it just needs to be like a little sketch for me. Pause the video, I will go over this question, it's worth 5 marks. So, the first question, it's between 1985 and 1986. B, part 1 is 1980, okay, and part 2, 1990. And then for your graph, okay, so here's my little sketch graph here. The line begins at 1980, above 0, and it rises and peaks between 1985, so wherever 1985-87 is, it peaks, and then it drops, but not to 0, okay? So make sure that you've got your line looking exactly like that for your 3 marks, okay? Question 4 then, the next one. Again, this is showing a graph, okay, but it's showing you several different things on the same graph. This x-axis is the distance downstream in meters, okay? And this axis, the y-axis, just shows you whether things, factors are high or low. So there's no actual scale on there, it's just high or low. So it shows the effect of a pollutant on both the oxygen concentration and the distribution of some organisms, okay, algae and bacteria, in a stream. The pollutant entered the stream at this point, okay, here, point P. So before point P, everything was pretty much, okay, level. So there was a high level of oxygen, there was a reasonable level of algae, it wasn't particularly high, and there was a low level of bacteria. That's really important before P. When the pollutant entered the stream here, we can see our number of bacteria are rising, our amount of oxygen is dropping, so's our number of algae. So use the graph, okay, to underline the correct answer. The pollutant, okay, is most likely to be, and then you've got to choose it. Give a reason for the change in the oxygen concentration. So for a reason means explain. And briefly explain the increase in algae following the high bacterial activity. So we've got high bacterial activity, algae go up at this point. Why is that? 2 marks. Suggest 2 ways in which the presence of the algae can benefit the animals in the stream ecosystem. So why would the animals be happy about this increase in algae, okay? Pause the video, have a go at answering the questions, and I will go over the answers with you in a second. So, for the first section, A, okay, it was this one, sewage, okay? That's the one that's got the high nitrate levels there, okay? Y does, as we said here, a reason for the change in oxygen just below the entry of the pollutant because the bacteria use the oxygen for respiration. You need to have both that part and that part to get the answer, sorry, okay? So for the question about explaining why, the bacteria change, okay, the urea or the protein to nitrate, and this is used by the algae for growth. So there are 2 marks there and they've got to be linked together. And finally, okay, for that last mark, suggest 2 ways in which the presence of the algae benefit the animals. They provide food They also provide oxygen because they carry out photosynthesis, and they also provide shelter or somewhere to hide, like a habitat, okay? So 3 marks there. We only need 2 out of the 3 then. Next question is about mussels, and I don't mean the ones in your arms and your legs. These are the invertebrate animals that live in a shell, okay? Very tasty with a bit of garlic butter. In 2013, scientists were investigating whether mussels could be used to monitor nitrate pollution in water. Mussels feed by filtering food particles out of the water, and they open their shells when they feed. Sensors were placed on the mussels in aquarium tanks to measure the size of the gap between the valves in different concentrations of nitrate. So you can see in our graph that as the amount of nitrate increased, the gap between the shells of the mussels increased. In other words, okay, they opened up further. So you will have to keep turning back between the pages to see the graph data to help you with the questions. I want you to describe the trend shown by the graph, and then scientists carried out trials to see if mussels with nitrate monitoring sensors could be used where the Mississippi River meets the Gulf of Mexico. Suggest 2 factors that may have affected these trials that would not have affected the results in the laboratory investigation. And scientists think that nitrate pollution can result in dead zones in which marine life could suffocate. Explain how this might happen. So this is really using your understanding and knowledge to help you explain something in a real life scenario here. Pause the video, see if you can answer. So for the trend, there's 1 mark. As the nitrate concentration increases, the gap between the shells increases. And if you can, try and get used to using data from the graph up to 4 millimeters, and then it starts to level off. The 2 answers that they want for here, the 2 factors that may have affected these trials that would not have affected the results in the lab, okay? They're looking at anything from predators being present, disease affecting them, things like tides and current and flow of water, other named chemicals like phosphates, sewage, oil, salt, competition for space and food, pH, temperature, oxygen, but not just different weather or climate, okay? And the final answer here, scientists think that nitrate pollution could result in dead zones in which marine life could suffocate. Now, there are 3 marks for this. Explain how this could happen. First of all, our nitrate causes that excessive plant growth or blooming of algae, okay, or words to that effect. That's what OWTTE means. The plants die or decay or decompose, not the bacteria eat the plants, they don't, okay? It's the bacteria cause the decay, or the decomposers cause the decay. And this uses oxygen for respiration. And you've got to have that 3rd marking point, okay, about oxygen for respiration, referring to bacteria, okay, not plants needing oxygen for respiration, for example, okay. Next question. This is your last question, and I thought I'd just finished with a different QWC, although it's very, very similar to the first one, but just to show you how similar these questions do appear on WJC, and they crop up regularly, okay, just redesigned, I suppose, into different formats, reworded, okay. So a farmer whose land borders a lake decides to grow cereal crops, and he sprays them with artificial fertilizer. Describe the probable environmental effects on the organisms in the lake. So give yourself some time, okay, use your notes to help you, okay, and all the knowledge that you've learnt, okay, on eutrophication in the previous lesson, the hour before lunch, to have a go at answering that. And I will go over the answers in a second. So, first of all, we want you to have identified that it's the fertilizer that's being run off or washed off the fields, okay, where the farmer's sprayed it on, and it's causing algal bloom or excess plant growth. So you can see the same marking points are coming up time and time again. This causes the overgrowth of plants. It's preventing that light reaching the plants underneath, okay, underneath that blanket of algal bloom. These plants will die and decay. It's bacteria or fungi, so something causing the decay, the microorganisms causing the decay, and that these bacteria use the oxygen for respiration, and as a result the fish can suffocate, okay? So for a 6 marker, I'm expecting all of that, okay? 5 marks, you might have left 1 point out, okay? So you might have forgotten about the fertilizer runoff is probably the obvious one. 4 marks, I'd be expecting you to have missed out 2, possibly 3. If you've missed out more than 3, okay, well, you drop down to 3 marks. And if you've missed out more than 4, dropping down to 2 marks, okay? Obviously, accurate spelling, punctuation and grammar, and use of appropriate scientific terminology. So hopefully you have a really good understanding of what eutrophication is now, and you've had plenty of practice at answering questions about eutrophication. So we will continue with this kind of style of online learning whilst we can't do any practicals at the moment. So first lesson will always be on content, and then there will be always some questions in your second lesson on a Thursday. Thank you, Year 10.